Welcome to another creature tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to learn about control point deformation motors. The task of this tutorial is to make the eye of this dragon blink. And we're going to demonstrate a couple of features of the control point motor that makes this possible. The first thing we're going to do is to install the control point motor onto this region mesh over here. So we should be in the regions tab, click on regions, select the mesh you're interested in. In this case, it's the upper part of the dragon head. Click Install Motor and select Control Points Motor. Right. Now select the region you just installed the motor on and click Edit Motor. So now we're in the author mode. You notice author has been highlighted. So what are control points motor? Control points motor, the concept of that basically allows you to add a bunch of control points onto the mesh of interest, and these control points have areas that they affect, and you can drag those control points around, you can transform them, you can apply rotations and scaling, and they will then perform those transformations on their areas of influence. So before we begin, we have to add in a control point, obviously. And so what we do is we click on the add button. So we're in add mode. What we do now is we click on the region mesh, and there you go. We have a control point added to the scene. Now go back to edit, and click on the control point. You notice that this is a circle, a circular area, and this determines the region of influence. Let's place the circle close to where the eye is. Now you can obviously scale this and scale it up and scale it down. We're going to scale it close to the dimensions of the eye, so we can blink the eye. Something like this. Right. We can add as many control points as we want, by the way, but in this example we're going to keep it simple because we're just blinking the eye. So we'll just add one control point. Now that we're done with authoring it, we're going to switch to Animate Mode. So click on Animate. So welcome to Animate Mode. This is where you actually set animation parameters onto your control points. So in this case, you notice we have three different transformation abilities. We can translate it, we can rotate it, and we can scale it. If you click on your control point, you notice that the translate handle just appeared. If I drag this around, you notice it's basically dragging the points under its area of influence around, essentially translating it in a very smooth fashion. So you can use that as an animation effect. You can also do rotation, and that will actually rotate the mesh under the area of influence using the rotate tool. In our case today we're going to use a scale tool because we're actually going to scale this eye up and down to make it blink. So look at the spreadsheet window. You notice there's a bunch of parameters we can set. So it says scale Y of 1, that's the default value. Let's hold that value for up to frame 5. And then let's close the eye for 2 frames. And then let's hold that value again up to, say, frame 10. Give it a value of 0.1. And then let's open the eye at frame 12. So let's restore the value back to 1. Now, what happens? Let's play the animation. Oh, there you go, a blinking action. So once you're done with that, click Finish Editing, and that will commit your changes. Now if we play the animation, we have a blinking eye. And we could obviously repeat, we can copy these knots over here. So let's repeat the blinking action again. Let's copy these knots. Copy. And then let's go to some other frame we want it to blink. Let's paste it. So now the eye should blink twice. There. And that's basically control point motors. It's a very powerful feature that allows you to perform different deformation effects on your mesh. Now this was a very basic example, but you can imagine putting a bunch of control points on your mesh, dragging them, translating them around to achieve different kinds of advanced warping or deformation effects. Okay, so we saw a very simple example of the control points motor. Now let's tackle a slightly more advanced example. You'll be surprised how it can be used in this situation. So here I have some kind of a vine image, and the idea right now, you'll be surprised actually, is I'm actually going to try to grow this vine along these chain of bones. Now imagine how difficult it is to do if you wanted to do it manually. So we're not going to go there. We're going to use the power of control point motor to help us achieve this goal. So let's go to regions, click on the vine, click install motor, click control points motor. Now edit motor. Okay, so here's the vine. Let's add a control point. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to scale this control point up. You're probably wondering what is going on, but you'll see in a moment. Let's scale this guy up. Right. Okay, so now the control point covers basically the half of the control point covers the whole entire vine. Right. And then if we switch to animate mode, what we're going to do now, let's go to the first frame, is we're going to use scaling to grow this vine. So what we do is we go to scale X, we set that to say 0, and scale Y, we set that to 0. And we want this vine to grow, say, let's say we want it to finish growing around frame 80. So we restore the value of 1 at 80 for both the scale X and scale Y. If we play the animation back, right, that's what we expect. But remember, this is in the authoring animate mode, in the edit motor mode. We haven't actually seen it. We haven't seen how it actually behaves in the actual bone animation. So click finish editing and play it back. Doesn't quite do what we want. That's interesting. Is there a way to fix it? Of course there is. Let's go back to the edit motor mode. You noticed there's an option called advanced projection. This was left unchecked. Check that. This is going to make the deformation motors of the control points a bit more expensive to compute. So you normally don't want to use it. But when in the cases where you want it to grow along a chain of bones to perform a more advanced deformation, you would need this feature checked. So check this and click finish editing. Okay, so now let's play it back. And there you go. We have a vine growing along a chain of bones. That's pretty cool. And notice that if this it follows the path of the bones. So this is a very, very powerful feature of control point motors. You've already imagined how you're going to use this. You can use this in many situations where you need to grow a mesh along a chain of bones or chains of bones to achieve the desired effect. I could even install physics on these bones and wave them around like they're undergoing some kind of wind force, and then grow the vine along those bones to get an even more complicated effect. And that concludes our tutorial on control point motors. Happy animating!